guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today we're gonna have the discussion that I kind of wanted to do for a casual Sundays, but we're just gonna do it now because, oh boy, my back is not healed just yet. Barely slept last night, but I'm better. Still, I cannot really do a lot of movements, so there we go. We're just gonna discuss about a topic which one of my lovely viewers suggested, and this is about how many orchids are too many, because that's a thing that can happen. Now, leaving aside all of our passion and love for orchids, we have to come to terms with the fact that there are more important things than orchids in this world, obviously, and mainly they refer to us and our loved ones. And maybe for some of you this topic is no big deal and you're well aware of how many orchids are too many. But for some people it might not be that obvious. With everything good in this life, when you overdo something, it has the potential to become very, very bad. And I have to say that when it comes to collecting or having a passion for something, sometimes we can get a little blinded. So I think this is an important subject to talk about, and I really do want to talk about. I'll give you my point of view at least, and how I see things and how I try to maintain a balance in my life. Alrighty, so let's start first off with some exceptions. Now, how many orchids are too many? This is a very, very personal thing, and it applies to each person individually. There's no written rule. And you might say, I'm the last person to talk about it because I have over 200 orchids. It's already too many orchids for a normal person to have. And partially I agree, there are a lot of orchids and they do imply quite a lot of work. They also imply you have a lot of time to devote to them. But actually my case is what I consider an exception. Because let's think about it. Say you have a greenhouse, you're a small orchid hybridizer maybe, or even small orchid grower. Now in your greenhouse you can have maybe up to 500 orchids at a time since you sell some of them. This makes it your job. You provide a service or a product and you get paid. Therefore, maintaining and keeping all of these orchids in good shape is your job, is your livelihood. In the same way, you can work at a greenhouse and spend most of your time with the orchids or plants there, and at the very same time you can make a living from having a lot of orchids, such as myself. I'm fortunate enough to have reached a stage where I can make a living from my YouTube channel, from talking about orchids and growing and caring for all of these orchids. So like in the cases above, if orchids are your livelihood and they ensure the money you need and your family needs to survive, then it's pretty logical you're gonna give a lot of time and a lot of effort to those orchids. Now I can imagine that these exceptions can extend. Maybe they're not your livelihood, but they are a great part of something that ensures your livelihood. You know what I mean? I cannot really think about all the scenarios right now, but I'm sure they exist. Bottom line, if they make sure you have a salary, then they deserve the time you would put into a normal job or a business. Now, even if this is the exception, it is still easy to have too many orchids. The moment you have too many orchids is the moment you start to ignore and actually lose some orchids that you already have. Pretty much you don't have the time of day to tend or care for all of them. Yes, losses can happen even in an orchid business. It's something you should expect, of course, because they're brittle things, they're alive. But if you see that constantly you tend to lose or neglect certain orchids because you do not have the time to give the attention to all of them, then yeah, maybe that's the moment when you have too many orchids, even if you care for them or you own them as part of your business. So in this respect, yes, a person can have a lot of orchids, but even so, they can get too many when things start to decline with some of them. Now for the normal home grower, the number obviously is a lot less than for the commercial grower. This doesn't mean that you have to have a set number. If you can take care of 20 orchids without you forcing yourself too much, then that's great. You can actually grow 50 and other people can only grow 2 because that's how much time and effort they can devote to those orchids. So you can see the number can vary. But when do we know it's a little bit too much? Well, I have this thing. First and foremost, it has to start with you. You are the number one person that should not be affected. Because if you are affected, the persons around you, and not only, whatever is around you, a job, pets, and so on, all of them will be affected. So first of all, time. Caring for orchids can take up quite a lot of time, and one of our main interests is to make caring for orchids as fast and easiest as possible. If you discover that you spend so much time with your orchids that you don't really get to spend that much time with your pets, with your children, with your family, then something is seriously wrong and you should definitely try to focus on figuring out if you have too many orchids or you're just overdoing it by giving them too much attention. Whenever we start a new hobby, it's just so interesting and intriguing that we can easily fall in that trap. But trust me, it's never a good idea to favor plants instead of people or even instead of pets. Your list of priorities when it comes to time should first go to your family, whoever your family might be, children or spouse or partner or even parents. Then of course pets, whatever depends on you to survive. And then of course your friends, and I'm gonna include here your job or acquaintances and all of those things that you need to do to ensure you get paid at the end of the day. And after all of these things that are important for you are said and done, whatever time you have left, you can spend with your orchids, if you're not extremely tired, that is. But more important than time is your health. And this is pretty fitting since I have a terrible back pain right now. Amazingly enough, it has nothing to do with orchids because I do dose my effort in a certain way with orchids and I try to make my life a lot easier with them. I know I have this back pain right now, it's kind of my fault. But that's not the point. If you ever have any type of health issue because of orchids, then maybe something's wrong there. Let's take for example back pains. They might not be something you suffer from, but if you spend an entire Sunday just carrying orchids to the sink, leaning and bending and doing all sorts of movements that are not okay for your body, and then the next day you have terrible back pain, then obviously something is wrong. Maybe you have too many orchids, yes, but at the same time, maybe you're not using a setup that fits you and your body type. That's a bit of a different subject. It has to do more with optimizing growing orchids, but first and foremost, you at least should consider the idea that maybe you have too many orchids for your possibilities at the moment. Now, a third reason might be the financial effort. Orchids do eat up some money because they need maintenance. They need fertilizer, but most of all, they need water. They might need electricity if you're running a heater or an AC or even lights. And of course, the more orchids you have, the more money they will eat with medium, pots, and so on, and maintenance. If at the end of the month you think, that's a little bit too much money spent on my orchids, then maybe you have a little bit too many orchids. If you don't have enough money to, let's say, go out and eat at a restaurant because you're tired or because you feel that way, but you don't have enough money because you just paid the electricity bill because of your grow room, maybe there's something wrong there, and maybe you can work a little bit with optimizing your grow room or giving up some orchids so the maintenance costs are more reduced. And I'm saying this because if you have too many expenses with orchids, obviously everyone, including yourself, will suffer. And I will repeat it, no one around you should suffer because of orchids. And that kind of leads me to my, let's say, fourth reason why you might consider you have too many orchids. Maybe your partner is not very happy with your hobby and you kind of need to think about why. Let's say maybe you do have a lot of time at your disposal that you can spend with your orchids. And maybe you do also have a lot of money and you can invest in maintaining a lot of orchids at a time. You're also in perfect health condition. They do not pose a threat to your health. But then you have your partner which would rather spend a lot more time with you than maybe you already do. And maybe instead of you always talking about orchids, you might want to fancy a subject that your partner might know about or might be interested in as well. Because let's face it, not all of us are interested in orchids. And in many cases, other people cannot really understand why we like orchids so much. So that again is a reason for you to think, maybe I have too many orchids, or maybe I'm devoting too much time to my orchids. And without going into too much detail, it is really important for your partner to support you, of course, but you have to understand that your loved one deserves your attention as well. Not only hi, hello in the morning and that's it. So this discussion today, maybe it's common sense. I'm pretty sure some of you will say, I really don't need this discussion right now. It's duh, I kind of knew everything. But trust me when I tell you that sometimes we can get so sucked up in whatever passion we have that the very obvious things become not so obvious anymore. And we're all prone to do this. And the only thing to prevent it is to remind ourselves that whatever we do in life, it kind of needs to be balanced and it needs to take into account many other things. Sometimes other things are more important than our hobby, even though we don't like the situation. That can happen as well, but in the end, it's for our own benefit to give attention to the really important stuff in our life. As for how many orchids are too many, that's really irrelevant and that only applies to your specific case. One of my viewers sometime in the past said, well, maybe a person cannot handle watering so many orchids because they have too many orchids. 10. Well, that's not my philosophy. My philosophy is let's make life easier with orchids so you don't only have 1 or 2 orchids. If you have room and time and space for 10, you should definitely keep 10. If you have, let's say, a health issue, or you are disabled or impaired in some way, you should be able to grow orchids as well. So my focus is to make life a lot easier with orchids because I certainly benefit from it, and I'm pretty sure many of you benefit from it as well. But as I was saying, there's always a balance. It would be lovely if everybody could have greenhouses and automated things and we can all make a living from orchids, right? Well, you know, sometimes it's not really like that. Sometimes we don't have everything, but it's still enjoyable, right? I would love to have automation in my greenhouse, but sadly I cannot. However, I'm very fortunate to actually make a living out of orchids. And you know what? That's enough for me. If I will ever have an opportunity, of course I'll take it, but for now everything is okay, and I'm pretty happy with the number of orchids that I have at the moment and how I care for them and how my life is with them. But at some point I will reach my limit too, just like we all will. So there we go, that's the discussion for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you didn't get very bored. Oh goodness, I need to go to the post office today and it's gonna be quite a fun ride, I suppose. I'm just gonna get a pillow and put a pillow on my back. But hey, it happens. So thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, you know the drill. Please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for orchids and plants videos on a regular basis and turn on notifications if you'd like to be notified whenever I upload a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye. Now for my back pain, I'm using this thing. It kind of actually does work pretty well in the daytime, and I've known this medicine for a lot of time now, but this is the first time that I'm noticing something new. Do you see the cap here? It's quite unique, isn't it? Well, this gel used to have a normal cap up until recent, but now it has this cap which is just so easy to grip. Now why would they do that? Well, because maybe people who use this gel have, I don't know, a condition, have problems with their joints, maybe arthritis, and just unscrewing that normal cap, I bet you it was a nightmare. This cap is just so easy to unscrew. It works so smooth. It has a short coil right here, and every time you put it back, you just have to push it until it does this. And it's so easy to actually work with it. And I just realized that I think this is among the few medicine providers that actually cared enough to do this change to their medicine packaging. Now, one of my issues with medicine is that I cannot swallow big pills or round pills. I mean, I can, it's just not pleasant. And I know a few other people who have this issue. I've also seen this in a documentary. In that documentary, they were saying, well, medicine providers don't really care about your comfort or how you use their medicine. They just give you the medicine. And I thought, well, that's really sad for somebody working in healthcare, right? I have to say, this is the very first time that I'm seeing a medicine actually thinking about the people using it and actually making changes for the better. So this is not a commercial and I'm not sponsored. It's just something that I noticed and it kind of, you know, it made my day. I'm happy when I see stuff like this, particularly from medicine providers, right? So yeah, good for you, Voltaren.